Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Mike, before I go any further, draft book, because I always forget to ask. Update on it. When will it be done? When will it go out? When can people expect it?
It's a done, McCoy.
Done! Hell yeah! Ain't no half-stepping here.
Wait a minute now. Let me tap the brake.
Okay.
It's a done, McCoy, from my standpoint.
Okay.
So we're going to get it back from the printer sometime next week, and as soon as we get it back, probably, either Wednesday or Thursday, somewhere in that time frame next week, and then we'll start shipping out.
So still, people can still order online?
Yeah, they can order online, saintsreport.com, Detillier.com, and we'll get it out to you.
Did what happened yesterday at LSU's Pro Day alter anything that might have previously been put in that book?
Hell no. Ain't nothing there, flip mill page to me. And here's my thing about all that. And it's great to talk about because you have nothing else sometimes this time of year to talk about. If it's a pro day, how to with no combine, it certainly it makes news. And I get it. It gives you something to talk about for a couple of days. But did anything there really surprise you? I'm asking you now.
No.
From a guy who covered LSU, did anything there really surprise you? No, not really. Nope. Nothing there really shocked you. All these times are almost as though you're training Olympic athletes today. And I see it all across the board. It's not only at LSU, man, it's all over. Some of these times are unbelievable. And they're being clocked by people that are professionals. I mean, you got scouts that are doing this. So it's not like they're green rookies. They understand it. I think for a lot of people, maybe a certain age, they don't like to accept this. But it's true. Young athletes today are bigger and faster and stronger than 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
Come on, there is no debate about that. It shouldn't be. But I think for a certain group of people, that's hard for them to accept that that element is in play. Okay, you can live back in the 80s and 90s all you want, but look at these athletes today, and you just see just how fast they are, how strong, their ability to jump, and they're training for this. It's not like they're training for football. They're training because the same drills have been in place since the combines first started back in the early 80s when we had regional combines. When they had one in Tampa, they had one in New Orleans, they had one in Indy, you had one on the West Coast. John Forcade and I were talking about this. I think John went to like 5.
Oh, wow. He participated in 5?
And he just sort of followed the group. You went here, you went there. It was regional back then. And finally, it was Al Davis and Gil Brandt, along with sort of presenting this to the commissioner to get him to understand, let's do it under one umbrella, one roofing, where all of us can come and watch it, where you don't have to go, if it's in North Carolina or if it's in Tampa or New Orleans or Indy out in California. Let's do it in one and get it over with instead of all this regional stuff, because now, it's costing us to send these guys all over the place. I think Steve Court had told me he went either to 4 or 5 also. But John and I had this conversation, and he was like, "Man, you on a trip all over. Basically, you go here, you go there, and you just sort of work it. You bring your medicals with you. Who would do that today? You got your medical file with you, and you going from combine to combine. Kind of show, okay, these are the injuries I had. This is what it is. So it's a different world. But the drills haven't changed. And I think if you work at something, you can get a little bit bigger and a little bit faster and jump a little bit higher and lift a little bit more weight, okay, it's not like I'm taking a 4.75 guy and making him a 4.3 guy.
Right.
Okay, that's impossible. Okay, they got people that want to argue with me about that, and I'm willing to tell them, listen, I've been doing this long enough, and I understand it. You don't take that 4.75 guy and make him a 4.3 guy. But if that guy's a 4.41 guy, I can maybe get him to be that 4.3 runner. If he can do 18 reps of 225, I can get him to go to 21 or 22. Because you're training for that, not necessarily football training. It is what it is, and I think the athletes today have a pretty good understanding of it. I really think they do. They understand this is what I'm working at this time. And if you listen to Jamar yesterday, that was one of the things he brought up. I've been training for the workout since November. Okay.
Right.
So he understood what this was all about, and I had no worries about him. Of all the guys, he was the least I had to worry about because I know how competitive, how focused. Man, you get him out on the football field and get him out on track, or no matter what, he is really competitive, and he wants to showcase what he's got, and he got a lot to showcase. Again, it is part of what we're seeing, but not only at LSU. You can go across the country. We saw these, Owa and Micah Parsons, what they ran at Penn State. These aren't little bitty dudes.
Right.
These are guys running, they're in the 240-something pounds, and they ran in the 4.3s, which is shocking to me. Almost like, okay, did they measure the 40 yards, or was it 38? Something like that. But, you look at the broad jump, vertical jump, that sort of thing. What it doesn't tell you is the most important thing, and why I rarely will change something on a player. It's advice Jim Finks gave me back late 80s. As you would figure, we doing a television show right after the draft, and we waiting on a certain former Saints quarterback to come film his version of it. And I found out that was the pre-course to plenty weights. And he turned to me and he said, I'm going to give you some advice. He said, in this world of scouting, remember one thing: fall in love with the player and don't fall in love with the athlete. Make sure it matches. And I think yesterday what you saw was a lot of match. What Terrace Marshall can do on a football field, he measured up to what he could run and do on a track. Jamar, the exact same thing. He could measure up to that. Did anybody not know that Kerry Vincent wasn't a fast player?
Guy ran track.
Guy ran track, and he was a track champion in Texas. Not only ran it, he was a champ doing it. So, and Racy, and it popped in my head before all this stuff started to peel out. And this was last year at an August practice. And man, Jamar, I should say August of 2019.
Okay.
Jamar beats a defensive back and beat him by about 15 yards on a play. Just left him in the dirt with a move, and then he's up the field. And Coach Joe was there, and we just sort of looked at one another, and I was like, man, that's fast. And he said, let me tell you something. T-Boy, he said, if I had them all on the track, Jamar, Terrace, Justin, Racy, you know who wins? Not by much, but you know who wins? Racy. And I'm like, what? He's the biggest dude you got out there, receiver. And he said, don't matter. He's also the fastest in a straight line. And he sure was right about it, Racy. And, it just, you can see it, that, he's got that foot speed that you're looking for. He's a core special teams guy. You understand what he's going to bring you right off the bat. And other than Jacoby, I probably have got more scouts who double check. That's happening this time of year. You have a scout maybe from the Pac-12, and he's double checking SEC players, and I mean, what about racing? Now, Jacoby's got him beat, and it's a far margin. There's a guy every year that kind of circles the track, and Jacoby's one of them that does. But Racy's the number 2 guy, and I told him, your team picks him right off the bat. He's going to help you on special teams. He is a big time special teams player. It never really clicked for him as a receiver big time. And he had an opportunity last year, I thought, to really kind of open the door there. And it didn't open up for him like it did for Gage when he was a senior at LSU. But, man, he can play some special teams, and you'll see what else he can bring you as far as a big man, short yardage, red zone type receiver. So nothing really would have changed even if Book wasn't finished.
Let's start with Williams signing the tag. Mike, do you think there's a chance that Marcus Williams would play this year on the tag and then try to capitalize on a bigger deal? Like, it seems like you are seeing free agents maybe sign shorter deals to be able to get that TV money and the bigger contracts on that next contract. Maybe a possibility for Marcus Williams?
Sign a long-term deal with Marcus. It's remarkable how, and I guess I maybe got to certain places because I listen well. And, man, you got to, because sometimes talking is sometimes an issue with people you work with. So you learn how to listen real well. And when you do these coaches shows, it was to listen if it was Sean Payton, if it was Aaron Glenn at that time, the secondary coach, if it was D.A. Dennis Allen talk. And every time Marcus Williams' name got brought up, how they would sort of lengthen the conversation about him. And, for some guys, you throw a name out there and it's real short. And so you sort of know a little bit that maybe his tenure here won't be real long. But with Marcus, it got extended. And it was always about how smart he is, how he picks things up defensively. Aaron Glenn just sort of went on and on about him. The same thing Coach Payton has, Coach Allen has. And so I think they want him around long term. And I think they'd like to do a long-term deal with Marcus Williams, excuse me. So I think that is evident. They want him to be a core football player on the defensive side of football, which means a long-term deal, which means plenty of money, one way or another. And it certainly helps you. And we know the salary cap now with the new television contract is going to explode in the next couple of years. It'll take a little while to get there, but I think it'll explode, and you'll see that thing come right back way up in the stratosphere. And that way you could take care of guys like Marcus Williams. But they want him around, and they want him long-term. Now, the other part about it is there is much more emphasis on the safety position today than ever before in the NFL because it's a coverage mismatch situation. They're looking for the weak link in the chain somewhere. And for some teams, they feel that the safety position is that. And so that's why I think they want Marcus around, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised, draft time, if a certain safety was around early, they pick him. Come on, Malcolm Jenkins can't play forever.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you looking at that particular part of the game where you got to match up. And now so many of these safeties, when you do the profiles and you do go back and look, how many of them have played in the slot? They played the nickel corner position. They played out wide. A number of the safeties, especially in this draft class, have played all over the board. And so that's what makes it interesting. But Marcus is going to hit. He's going to win the Powerball, and he's going to win it in New Orleans. They'll give him a long-term contract.
What about Tanoh Kpassagnon, the defensive end that they signed? How does he fit in on this defense in 2021?
Well, Kpassagnon is a guy that, and you want him up the bus first. I mean, you talk about a big dude. He is that. And when he was at the Senior Bowl a few years back, man, he put on a show because, again, his size, and there aren't a lot of guys built like him in the NFL. There used to be, but there aren't a lot today. That type size at defensive end. And you can see he's big, he's fast, he's really strong. He is a lengthy guy that you just say, wow, why hasn't he turned it on yet? What's happened there? He's a second-round pick. You knew he was a little bit of a developmental player. Now, he's smart, man. He's one of the sharpest guys around to talk football, to talk anything with you. He is super smart. But it has never really sort of clicked with him as being that early-round pick guy. And so for Tanoh, it's just, can he put the key in the ignition and turn it and get big-time production? I thought he played better in 2019 than he played in 2020. And what was so funny about that is we doing the Louisiana line camp that in 2019. And Brandon is the defensive line coach. He had just left the Patriots and went to Kansas City. And so I go to do the interview with him, and I ask him about it. I got to ask you about leaving the Patriots to go to Kansas City. He was like, kind of keep it, whatever. But I knew why he left. He was upset that when Flores left to become the head coach, he didn't become the coordinator. Mm. Now, Flores didn't have it by name, but he was really the guy kind of running the show. And they passed up Brandon for the job. So his deal was, man, the heck with this. I've been with the Patriots all these years. I'm going to Kansas City. And he was good friends with Spagnuolo, so he went there. We sat down. I said, I'm going to ask you about the big guy. And he said, okay, sure. So I asked him about Tanoh. And he just sort of, I went back and looked at the tape. He just sort of rolled his eyes back, and he was like, good gracious. I haven't had a lot of guys that look like him that I'm coaching. He said, maybe other guys are that fortunate to have him, but, he said, athletically, he's got everything you want. He's big, he's fast, he's smart, he's strong. But he said, and so he laid it out like that and then sort of stopped. But he said, this game is about leverage. This game is about understanding how to get off a block, read and recognize what's happening in front of you. And that's something we got to work on. In essence, he was telling me, even before he had coached him a game, he knew what the flaws were in Tanoh. Mm. And that he is built like that, but he's never been a big-time player. Now, he did throw in, one of the things he's going to help us right off the bat, I'll put him in the middle on special teams when they kick a field goal. And I want to see that guy try to launch one over him. And he said he's going to help us real quickly there. And I think what you see in Tanoh is a little bit of up and down play, some inconsistency in that, he'll make a big play here and there, and then you don't see him for a while. But you need somebody, certainly with Hendrickson going, and it's a great opportunity for him to come in here to see some playing time. And I could kick him inside also in some of these obvious passing situations, kick him inside and let him out-athletic that interior player. But, Matt, when you watch him play, it's the good and the bad with it, too. It's a lot of inconsistent play with him. Great opportunity. But I think the guy that, and this is his chance now to showcase his pass rush skills, is not Kpassagnon. It's called Granderson. Mm-hmm. Because, again, this was, I think, in October, late or early November, coach's show with Peyton and asked about Granderson, and he started on about he's got his weight right, he's got a chance to be a really good player. And I asked him, which everybody asked me, give a comp, compare him to somebody. He gave a short pause, and he said, I was only with him for 1 year, and it was at the end of his career. But he said he is built and he's athletic like Richard Dent. Mm. And he said, we had him that 1 year in Philly. He said, I was there when I was in Philadelphia with Gruden. And I'm like, man, if he's anything like Richard Dent, I'll take that any day of the week. Because I know, man, you followed football in the 80s, early 90s. Man, Richard Dent was one bad dude out on that football field as a pass rusher. So I hope it works out for him because, again, everything is there for him. He's got all the physical connect the dots. I always, and I'll put this in my draft book, every year about a player that is like that physically has it all, but there's something missing. How instinctive he is. Does he have great football instincts? And I think sometimes people say, well, I don't get that. If you're that big, that fast, that strong, you should know what to do. But that's really not the case. Sometimes there's some hesitation on exactly what you should do. If you were going to build a safety and a slot guy, would you build him like Tyrann Mathieu?
Nope.
But you want him, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, because one thing I can't teach him, and he's got, is upper-level instincts. And you walk up to Ed Reed, if he's now you can see Ed because man, he got all that gray in his beard now. So he's getting to be a pops like me. So so you can recognize him. But if you didn't know it, and you walked up, Ed Reed, you couldn't pick out and say Ed Reed's a former NFL player and an NFL Hall of Famer. He doesn't look that part, but man, you could not teach him smarts and instincts, football-wise. He just never took a false step. He understood where to get himself in a position to make a play. And that's the thing with Kpassagnon that you don't actually see play to play. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But he's a big man, and I do know who ran his individual workout. And it was Ryan Nielsen. And what was funny, we doing the interview, and Nielsen's sitting like 5 feet away from us, and he's talking about Kpassagnon. Because Ryan was next. I interviewed Brandon, and then Ryan was next. Mm-hmm. And so he did and so when we finished the interview, Ryan was like, I did his individual workout. Well, when he worked out for the Scouts. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, Kpassagnon. So it's funny how the two guys that were at the camp, kind of, I'm sure, sort of exchanged some things along the way. But Ryan's a great coach, but so is Brandon Daly. I mean, Brandon Daly's a really good defensive line coach. So we'll see what happens here. It's a great opportunity for him to be that number 3 guy, and we all know one thing with Marcus Davenport, he does have downtime. Yeah, he just does. I mean, I don't know if it's the way he's built, or he's got that injury list that sort of piles up and something happens. So you need a 3 and a 4. And you've got a 3 with Granderson. Mm-hmm. And I think he's the guy, Matt, that, man, I look at it from a pass rush standpoint that really could put up some numbers. I sort of think it's Carl.
When Ed Ogeron met with the media earlier this week, there's 2 things he said that stood out to me I wanted to get your opinion on. Number 1, he said Mason Smith already is the best interior pass rusher they have. That's 1. And 2 is moving Jay Ward to safety. So let me start with the guy who you've been telling me about for, 4 years, Mason Smith, and the impact he's having in, maybe 5 or 6 practices.
Yeah, that really doesn't surprise me much. I got to see him play real early. And one day I'll have to tell the whole story about who tipped me off to that. And it's the most unlikely individual you would ever guess. Okay. Because to be honest with you, she wouldn't know if the ball is stuffed or plucked or all she knew was a big guy. And there's a big guy out here, at Terrebonne High School. And this was when he was a sophomore and just starting his sophomore year. It didn't take me long to spot him, put it to you that way, because she had told me he was a senior. It's like, okay. And her thing is his last name was Mason. Okay. Well, she got the big part right about the guy. Right. but whatever. That, watching him, he is an athlete at the highest level for a big man. And I've said this before, he is the best big man athlete I've ever seen from the Bayou. Not the best football player yet, but he's working on it. Because I think Eric Andelsek was. Man, I saw Eric play on both sides of the football. Man, he was special at Thibodeau High School. Now, Eric would have given up eye teeth to have that build like what Mason has. But, man, for a big man, he's so quick. He knows how to use his hands real well. He's a good technician for such a young guy, and he's focused. And, man, that doesn't surprise me that he can give you that really good push up the middle. Now, the one thing with him, and I think Ed would probably agree, he's going to need a little bit of work on maybe sort of holding his point a little better when they run the football right at him. And come on, you're 18 years old going up against a 22-year-old man. So that's a difference between an 18-year-old and 22 physically. But as a pass rusher, man, he's going to excel there, and he's going to give you that inside push, which every quarterback I've ever spoke to, when you ask them, what's the worst thing you can have? And they tell you, I don't want no pass rush from the middle. I hate it. It takes away my ability to step up in the pocket, and then they got me moving. Either I'm moving backwards or I'm moving laterally, and I don't like either one. I want to sit there and throw it. And that interior pass rush takes it away, and he can give you that real early. And, man, he plays pedal to the metal. And I know there's been a lot of people, my son and my cousin, they beat him one-on-one. And I'm like, what? Beat him in what? Chess? Cards? They ain't beat him on no football field. That's a bunch of horse hockey. But I think it was early, and I think you see it, that he's a special big man and a really smart guy, and somebody that really doesn't surprise me, that he sort of has taken hold of that. And I'm telling you, I'll give you another guy, and he's not there yet, but when Savion from St. James hits that field, they're going to have themselves an edge pass rusher, and I think he can help very quickly there. He's got some skills to rush the quarterback and run the field. And to have both of them here in the Bayou area at one time is amazing. But when Savion's going to hit that campus and he's going to start working, that name's going to be out there. And Coach Valdez did a good job with him, but, man, you don't have to coach him up a lot. He knows what to do. Jay sort of reminds me a little bit of Kerry Vincent Jr. in that I think that he could play out wide. He could play in the nickel, but also he can play safety. And, Kerry didn't play last year, but he was at that nickel safety, and he played a little bit of high safety. I think Jay Ward is like it. Now, he doesn't quite have, very few people do, have Kerry's speed, but but certainly a bigger player than Kerry Vincent. And so he brings you that element, and that he has grasped the game from a couple different levels here. And you don't have a lot of depth at the safety position. And I think him at free safety is perfect for him. And also, when you go into dime, I want Jay Ward on the field because of his coverage skills. And so I could see that, and that was a good move by Durante and making sure that he's out there playing that safety position, because now, similar to the Saints, P.J. Williams can play out on the edge. He's played the nickel, but really where he's good at as a dime safety, and that he's got that range that you're looking for in the coverage part of the game. And I look at Jay, he's got some of those same similarities, and he could potentially be the guy as a starter, because he's got some football smarts. He understands it. And the one thing I don't know, and we won't know until a little bit later, is I think at that position you got to be a chirper. You got to be able to communicate well. How well he can communicate with the other guys and getting them to understand what's happening out on the football field. You know, Ryan Clark was great at it. You know, when Ryan played, he was great at getting other people to understand, because Ryan knew what he could do, but also he knew what you were supposed to do.
Right.
Okay, you got to understand. Not everybody knows exactly what they got to do, and things start to change real rapidly. And so you got to have that chirper ability. That's the one thing I want to see with Jay. Is he that type of player? Because if he is, then he's the full Monty. He's exactly what you're looking for back there deep, in that he can communicate really well. In this game today, you know, with 4 and 5 wideouts and the tight end like another receiver, man, they cutting you off. I was watching film of a small college guy a couple weeks ago, right before my final write-up on him. And I'm talking about he's playing in the MEAC. They doing these pick plays every play they run. Every play. They got a pick somewhere. The guy's coming in, and you know, they're not calling it like they do in some of the other divisions, but man,
Right.
they're picking guys off every play. You can see what's happening in this league and understanding and adjusting to that they're setting you up for a big play. And can Jay be that guy to get that, you know, other individual to understand, hey, listen, they're going to try to pick you on this play. Be careful. I've seen it on film. But, you know, Jay's a really good athlete, and the more he's on the field, the better I feel about LSU's secondary.
All right, Mike D, let's get right to it. Austin Berneman via the text line says, ask Mike, who would be better fit for the Saints if available at 28? Jamin Davis, the linebacker, or Caleb Farley, the cornerback?
Okay, give me those names one more time.
Said Davis, the linebacker, or Caleb Farley, the cornerback out of Virginia Tech?
Well, if Caleb Farley's there, I'm picking him. If my medicals, now he had a small back procedure, but I would be surprised if Caleb was there. Not pick him in a heartbeat. 2019, he was terrific. He didn't play last year. He decided to opt out. But man, he's prototypical what I want in a corner. He's a long, lean guy, and he can run like hell. And he also was a guy, I think, that clocked in after the back surgery 4.28.
Wow. Oh.
I mean, so, okay, now my medicals would have to say everything's fine with it. And it was a small procedure, and I've known other guys that have had it. But if he's there, I'll pick him. No questions.
Steve KGO via text says, please ask Mike about Tyler Shelvin. What do you think about Tyler weighing in at 350, Mike?
I wish it was less.
Yeah.
But, you know, listen, I was glad the first number was a 3, and I'm really glad the second number was a 5, because you know, he's gotten real heavy. When he left here, he was 370s, high 370s when he left in August. So it means he's lost 20 to 25 pounds. But you know, on a regular human being, 25 pounds is a lot of weight.
Yeah.
On Tyler, that's not a lot. He's remarkable as an athlete. You watch him in 2019. Okay, he got heavy as the season went along. You saw his shirt sort of expand, you know, because we've all been through that. That shirt starts to poke out a little bit more and more and more. And his jersey was like that. And, man, he was hell on wheels. But I think he'll end up probably being a third-round pick. He's much better playing on the nose. I think that's his spot. But, you know, everything's all hybrid today. But, man, you know, you're concerned about his health. And it's not just short-term, it's long-term with him. So he's a really good football player. I'd love to see what he could do if his second number was a 3. Because that would mean that instead of me playing him like 22 or 23 snaps, I could get it into the 30s with him. And he'd be really, really something special at 300. And that's still big.
Yeah.
But, man, you're talking about 20 more pounds on him. You know, you sort of leaning at the end.
Ask Mike, as Merrick Mathern. Ask Mike if Jamar Chase falls to the Bengals, should they pick him?
We will see how much clout Joe Burrow has. Okay, if this was a veteran quarterback, and you know, because when that starts to leak out, that comes from the Joe camp. Hey, listen, I want Jamar.
Right.
If he were a veteran quarterback, I would say that he would go there. Now, here's the two things that are negative. You're dealing with the Bengals. That's one, and that's a long history. with that haven't been real good. And secondly, if Penei Sewell is there, my thing would be to Joe, hey, listen, we need to keep you upright. And Penei can help us do that. And I can get you a receiver in round 2, another one. But I need to keep you upright for now 17 games. And Jamar and you are great together. And I understand why you come here and lobby for him, but I'm worried about your health. And that means people up front. Look how badly he was beaten up last year. Before he went down to the knee injury, he was getting hit unbelievable amount of time. So here's my thing. If Penei Sewell is there, man, I'm thinking about his long-term health, and I'll pick him.
I agree with you, by the way. Let's see. Ask Mike. We got about 2 minutes left. Ask Mike, where do you have, this is from Cade, where do you have Kerry Vincent ranked, and would he be a good fit for the Saints?
He'd be a really good fit for the Saints because of his versatility in that he has played out wide. He is better in the nickel slot, and also he's played that dime safety, like we talked about with Jay. And so, yeah, he would be a really good fit. If you don't pick him in the 3rd round, you're not going to get him. I mean, because I think that's sort of where you're going to see him get picked, sort of from the middle of round 3 into the early part of round 4.
Susan Dixon asked Mike, will the Saints re-sign Austin Carr?
I think they will. Now, the problem with Austin is going to be to try to make this team, and he loses his greatest advocate. He lost it.
Drew Brees. Oh, you're right.
That's it.
You're right. Mike, you have nailed that for so long.
Man, listen, every time we talk to Drew, he'd always bring up Austin, and we would sort of look at one another and okay, I get it. I get it. But I think they re-sign him, but it's going to be difficult for him to make this team. Really difficult.
SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, Saints News Network over at SI.com. Of course, the M&D Draft Report. If you haven't gotten yours yet, order it right now at MikeDetillier.com or SaintsReport.com. He's with us every Thursday. Mike D, you're the best. We appreciate you. We'll do it next week.
Thank you, Matt.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.